This is Agriculture Today, and I'm Shelby Varner with the K-State Radio Network. Daniel O'Brien, K-State grain economist, starts today's show with his grain market outlook, where he talks about market strength, the recent crop tour, and how things are looking for growers. Continuing the show is K-State Extension cow-calf specialist Jason Warner as he explains what learning opportunities are provided to students and Kansas producers by the K-State Purebred Beef Unit. K-State meteorologist Chip Redmond wraps up the show explaining our current weather pattern and if we will be getting a break anytime soon. That and more is coming up ahead on Agriculture Today. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we start our Friday show with a grain market update from K-State grain economist Daniel O'Brien. Daniel, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Shelby.
Daniel, as we look at the grain markets, what have we been seeing for movement?
Well, grain markets over the last week have been responding to questions being raised by crop tours that have been occurring with regard to yields in some key states here in the United States for corn and soybean production, particularly in Nebraska and parts of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, etc. Areas where they've had farm fields have had quite a bit of rainfall. The crop tours found corn ears that weren't necessarily filled clear to the end of the ear, and more evidence that the high yields of last year that occurred had a lot to do with not just good irrigated corn fields in the Western Corn Belt, but also that adequate moisture for the non-irrigated fields to come along pretty well. So doesn't take a lot to hear of concern from crop analysts with regard to what they see out there. And preliminary estimates of 5-10% lower yields than had been expected or than the USDA had projected. And for corn, you're looking at a U.S. corn yield of 180.7 bushels per acre that came out in the August report. So on September 11th, the USDA will release their results for the USDA NASS crop production report, the September report, and also the WASDE report. So, and of course, the crop production numbers feed directly into the WASDE supply-demand balance sheets, and then it's the job of the WASDE economists to balance things out to see where the ending stocks and stocks to use end up at, and to see what impact that might have on price. So we're in a time when for both corn and soybeans, we've seen some movement in the markets. Yesterday, we had December corn, new crop corn trade above $5. Given where we have been in this roller coaster ride of a summer that we've had, there was a time when we thought that would almost never happen. So something around 501, 505, 503.5, depending on how they all close out and settle everything. And that was up yesterday about 5.5 cents. For soybeans, also 1236.5, about even, just slightly down from where they were. So that's a far cry from 1125 or something below 10. So you do have just mainly for one part of the supply demand balance sheet, the supply side, some concerns coming in. We've had an accumulation of issues impact the wheat market here. Hard red winter wheat closed yesterday for the September contract at about 762 approximately, and that was about even money. I've seen some run up here within the past week or so that's certainly positively affected those crops. And so I guess we have crop concerns bringing to some very unexpected boost to the grain markets. And generally, in the Eastern Corn Belt, they've had some torrential rains, particularly in Indiana, elsewhere. And generally, the mantra or the principle we follow is that rain makes grain. Well, generally it does, unless you get such extreme situations where that you find yourself having trouble with crops maturing, having trouble with harvest, etc. So at least now we've got, well, at least now, I'm not saying we're begging for it, but at this time we have those questions are now on the table. Are we going to dry out? Will harvest be affected, et cetera? One thing about being a seasoned person like myself, I can remember years where we did have very slow harvest. I think it was 2003 where we had pretty good crops in the fields, and then wet, cool conditions for a good time, and it extended or delayed the maturity of the crops far enough into the window where we were caught with freeze in Iowa. So big deal, lots going on. I think that was the year of the 092 program, if I remember. So I'm not saying that those issues that'll occur, but it does raise the risk of it. You also, I think we'd mentioned the upcoming September 11th crop production and WASDE reports. Right now, I guess the stakes have been raised for what those numbers will come out and show. And I think for our reasoning or my perspective is that okay? We've seen the USDA drop their corn yield estimate down to 180.7. Does that catch it all? Is there more? Is there more declines that may happen? So we've already seen a decline from 183 down to 180.7. The question will be, well, once USDA gets out in the fields, and if they're still muddy and they can't get in, what does that say about final yields? And the soybean number, we had a small decline in the from the July to the August 12th crop production report and WASDE reports, from 53 bushels per acre down to 52.7, just, marginal. But does this situation that we're seeing as it's developed for soybeans put us at the mode where are we looking at more than just a marginal decline? Are we looking at a bushel to 2 bushels off that 52.7? And all of those modes, all of those scenarios, even with the increase in acreage that came about from that in the last WASDE report, well, NASA WASDE reports released on the 12th, even with all that, you still have the potential for more declines. I would not be surprised that if you're handicapping this, putting a probability on this, the type of optimism that we'd seen earlier in the market or earlier this summer certainly seems to now be at least put on hold. We'd have to have tremendous drying weather to allay some of these issues. The hot weather that we had in July in a number of these areas probably did some damage to the crop. And does that damage impact the ability of the crop now with moisture to recover or not? That's a fair question. So a lot of questions to look at. Also, again, we're at the K-State Risk and Profit Conference. Just got done speaking earlier this morning about grain market outlook. Glenn Tonser, my colleague, talked about livestock market outlook. Coming up here in a bit, Guy Allen and myself will talk about international grain market trends, et cetera, and some issues to look at with the anticipation of year 2 impacts from El Nino on South America, particularly Brazil. We tend to have drier weather in the second year, and it sounds like the Brazilians are anticipating that, and that could affect the second crop. It could affect all plantings coming in this fall if that happens. But then you have the question of how long any potential dry impact, which has a higher likelihood now because of where this El Nino cycle is at. Does that affect their second crop corn, their safrinha corn crop a bit? I guess we'll see. So I guess to wrap all this up, we've talked a lot about the supply side here this morning and then the size of crops. Still questions that will be worked out with regard to usage or demand side. You have a combination of strong exports for corn, pretty decent ethanol production going forth. For soybeans, you've got strong crush exports down from where they had been, but not falling off completely. So you have for both corn and soybeans at not a destroyed demand base, still a pretty decent demand. And the likelihood that when we get done with the September report, higher odds certainly now than we had about a week or two ago of having stocks tighten up even more, and to see instead of 1.65 billion bushels ending stocks for corn and 10% stocks to use, it'll be noteworthy if we get below 10% stocks to use with tighter production on corn. For soybeans, Again, right now, 320 million bushels projected with still a sizable soybean crop. Do we have changes in yields that bring us lower down to 6.5% stocks to use, moving lower or so? If that's the case, then we support prices all the more. It's just thought provoking to see where we were about 2 or 3 weeks ago and where we're at right now with where the development of the crop has taken us and a number of other factors. And we haven't even mentioned anything today about geopolitical influences, which are also always playing out there.
Daniel, when you look at all these different reports and things currently happening when it comes to the grain market, what are you hoping to learn for our Kansas growers?
I think as soon as we can quantify the risks or gain some understanding of what the size of these crops will be, then hopefully that will be information that they can take into the market and see whether it's as we go now into harvest, are we looking at harvest lows, like kind of a typical marketing year where we're looking at storage more so, or if we come out particularly of the crop report numbers for size for corn, soybeans, grain sorghum crops, are we looking at a situation that's increasingly at risk that could decline yield wise? If that be the case, then in the U.S., much less what's happening overseas, then it would seem there's more opportunity for higher prices at moderate sideways to higher prices coming through harvesting and moving forward, and that will affect storage or sell decisions of Kansas farmers. So we'll see.
Daniel, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thank you, Shelby. Take care.
That was K-State grain economist Daniel O'Brien. We're cutting to a short break now, but we'll be right back. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we continue our show talking about the K-State Purebred Beef Unit with K-State Extension cow-calf specialist Jason Warner. Jason, thanks for joining us today.
Appreciate it, Shelby. Good to visit with you.
Jason, what is the K-State Purebred Beef Unit?
Yeah, so the K-State Purebred Beef Unit is a registered cow-calf unit that is within our Animal Sciences and Industry Department here at Kansas State University. And so it is a unit that has been part of Kansas State for a long time. It's one of the oldest livestock units still in operation that we've had here within our university, and very fortunate from that aspect. Actually, it's interesting. Kansas State University's had registered cow-calf herd, has had a registered cow herd going all the way back to the 1880s. I believe we started in 1881. And certainly have changed over the course of time, but a very important unit from a historical aspect and as well as many other reasons as well too. But it's interesting, we've gone back that far, and we've had a registered purebred unit, registered cow-calf unit here at the university since that time.
What breeds does this unit focus on?
Currently, our operation consists of supporting a registered Angus cow herd, a registered Hereford cow herd, and a registered Simmental cow herd, along with a group of non-registered commercial females that comprise the core group of our female base we currently have within our cow-calf unit today. And really, as you go back and you look at it, when we started with the unit's inception back in the late 1800s, we had Angus and Hereford breeds, and we maintained those two breeds up until about the start of the 20th century. And at that point, there were some changes and some different breeds incorporated. And throughout the early 1900s, there was a time period there where at one point, I know the unit maintained at least 7 different breeds, and there were some dual purpose breeds that were incorporated into that unit as well during that time period. But basically, from about the 1970s on, 1960s to 1970s on, the unit has supported the 3 breeds, the Angus breed, the Hereford breed, and the Simmental breed. And really the idea with that is that allows us to be very representative of what the current beef industry is today, not only here in Kansas, but across the United States as well, too. Having a couple of very prominent British breeds and then a very complementary continental breed that really balances with those breeds well. And so those are the 3 core breeds that we have, and the progeny that we from those breeds from within those individual herds. as part of a greater herd. Those are the animals that are reflected in our progeny and in our production sale as well that we have at this point.
What does the team of people look like that make this unit function?
So that's a really important aspect when we think about just the success of the unit and being able to accomplish all the things that are necessary for the unit to play a key role for the broader Department of Animal Sciences and Industry. And so our faculty supervisors are myself and Chris Mullinex. Christian Magana is our current purebred beef unit manager, our current cow unit manager. And Christian does a really nice job for us and oversees and manages all the day-to-day operations with cow herd operations and ranch management operations, and does a really nice job for us. And he is currently the only full-time employee that we have at the unit or within the unit. But then we also rely very heavily on a team of both graduate and undergraduate students that play key roles, and our staff of student employees will vary some throughout the year, but in most semesters we'll have anywhere from 7 to maybe 10 or 11 students employed at the unit on a part-time basis. And certainly we will have a couple of graduate students, maybe 1 or 2 graduate students that would also be very closely involved with the unit and serve key roles from both the management, but then also research aspect as well too. So very much a team effort. And one of the things that's unique about our unit is that we really serve and help support all 3 missions of the land-grant university system. So the teaching, the research, and the extension aspects of our work here at K-State. And within our registered cow herd, within our unit, we really work to try to support all of those missions and all of those aspects. And that means that we have a lot going on. We're a very busy, very active unit, and we have a lot of activities, especially through the fall and spring semesters. But really, more so now, we've got things going on all the time, and so it takes certainly a very strong team, and we're fortunate to have a great team of students that help support us and do a great job, and to rely on those students for some important aspects from just a day-to-day operation, taking care of cattle, getting feeding done. They're involved very closely with breeding and calving and prepping animals for the sale. And so it's very much a team approach. And as folks that have seed stock cow herds can relate to, when you're in that side of the industry, that adds a whole nother level of layer and work to the operation. And it's a lot of fun, but it also is certainly something that requires a good force of students to get everything done. And so we're fortunate that we have that from that aspect. And it's also a great opportunity for student employment at the unit within the Department of Animal Sciences.
What have been a couple of the cool research projects that have taken place out there?
Historically, over the course of time, there have been a number of different research projects that have been conducted at the Purebred Beef Unit. Some protein supplementation research. There's been some genetic selection work that's been done there over the course of time. Over the last 3 to 4 years, some of the research that we've been conducting that has been involved with the Purebred Beef Unit herd has been focused in a couple of different areas. One area has focused more on protein supplementation with late gestation and early lactation beef cows, looking at the impact of ionophore supplementation and protein supplementation to those cows grazing dormant winter forages as we go throughout the latter stages of gestation and early lactation, and looking at the impact on forage intake and cow-calf performance and some emission components as well too. Looking at things like carbon dioxide emission and methane emissions and that aspect as well, which is certainly important from a broader sustainability standpoint. Been some really neat research that we've been conducting in that space, and fortunate to be doing so. We've also conducted some mineral intake research, and we have that as a current ongoing project, looking at intake and variation in free choice mineral consumption and quantifying that better. And also at the same time too, have been involved in some bull development research. We've been looking at the impact of fatty acid supplementation and fat levels in growing bull development diets, and evaluating the impact that has on post-weaning performance, growth, and development but then also to development from a reproductive aspect as well, too, looking at the impacts on semen quality and bull performance from that aspect. So a myriad of different projects in recent years, and historically has been a place where a lot of good practical producer focused research has been conducted. And really, I think as we look at our role that we play within the animal sciences and industry department, not only is it an opportunity for us to be able to conduct some good practical applied research that directly benefits our producers, not only here within the state of Kansas and beyond, but then also too, we think about from the teaching aspect, and that's really a core component of the unit as well too. And there are a number of different courses, both in the fall semester and in the spring semester, that utilize animals at the unit or utilize the facilities at the unit, and a really important conduit from a teaching aspect. And hundreds of students would interact with the unit in some fashion each semester, and that's a really important aspect and a key reason why we're super proud of the unit and the role that it plays, because it's really important from that hands-on learning component and that hands-on learning aspect, and allows us to be able to get those students out of the classroom and into a real production setting as close as we can provide it for them within a university cow herd, give them the hands-on real-world experience as best we can to prepare those students so that they're well-trained and ready to be successful when they get into the workforce.
Jason, with your involvement in the unit, what's your favorite part?
Really, I think the favorite part for me is just the opportunity to interact with a wide variety of students, not only students that are directly employed with the unit and work for us on a daily basis. I get to interact with those students very frequently, and it's great to build those relationships and work with those individuals and see them grow and develop, and for us to build that relationship and that trust with them. But then also, too, to see all the other students that are involved and that interact with the unit throughout the semesters is really great, too. It's always very rewarding to see all the various activities that we do on a yearly basis, and really it culminates with our production sale in the spring that we have the 1st of March. And being able to see the students interact with that and grow and develop as leaders is really key, and it's a great aspect, and my most rewarding aspect of the unit is seeing us be successful from that aspect.
Jason, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thanks, Shelby. Appreciate it.
That was K-State Extension cow-calf specialist Jason Warner. In today's show notes on agtoday.net, I will put a link if you'd like to learn more about the K-State Purebred Beef Unit. We're cutting to a short break now, but we'll be right back. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we conclude our Friday show with a weather update from K-State meteorologist Chip Redmond. Chip, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Chip, as we look at this past week of weather, what have we been seeing?
We've seen the high pressure that's been to our south kind of flex a little bit. We saw it start to expand northward again earlier this week, and then by midweek it kind of shrunk down and went back southward. And so with that, we've had fluctuations of 100-degree heat in the south central, southwest part of the state, especially when it pushes northward. And it's got kind of like a stalled front basically on the northern edge of it. So as that ridge expands, it moves that front northward, and we see those warmer temperatures creep north into the state. And then we get a bigger push that kind of turns that stationary front into a weak cold front, and that pushes it southward. We get some reprieve. And we also see episodes of thunderstorm activity of some weak monsoonal moisture that is continuing to kind of come in from the southwest. It's not a very strong monsoon feed, so it's not widespread thunderstorm activity, but we have had several episodes of storms really in places where we needed precipitation. Looking at places like southwest Kansas and south central, well, it wasn't overly widespread. Places like along the Oklahoma border saw 2 inches, 3 inches of rain, especially right there in Ashland County, southern part of Harper County. And then we also saw a good amount of precipitation went along the Colorado border, again, 2 to 3 inches in places. And then that kind of extended eastward across northern Kansas with 1 to 2 inches, and even to northeast and east central with kind of widespread 1 to 2 and localized more. Good rain amounts. We're on the downward trend of precipitation for this time of the year. So we tend to see drier conditions typically as we get into the late summer, but average precipitation is usually anywhere from around an inch in the east and around 3/4 of an inch in the west. So it's good for those folks that got it. There's still a lot of folks in southwest, south central Kansas that did not get precipitation. That continues to grow a big deficit. And as a result, we saw a double in severe or worse drought in Kansas this week with the drought update.
With our recent large mixture of different weather we saw, are we going to continue to see that in the future weeks?
This pattern is stagnant and stubborn, to say the least. Very persistent pattern. We need something big to happen. We have maybe some hints of it occurring in the Pacific. We had Hurricane Lala that hit Hawaii. And there's another hurricane actually right on its heels that's going to come very close to Hawaii. Both are strengthening and going to be. Lala right now is a Category 4, very strong hurricane. That storm's got potential to get pushed northward into the jet stream, and that'll result in a buckling of the pattern. That'll likely be when we finally break this pattern, but that probably won't happen once we get the downstream effect until maybe the first week of September, maybe even a little bit later. So we're stuck in this pattern as that we're going to keep that ridge of high pressure flexing. We're lucky we're not in Oklahoma and Texas where they have seen 100-degree heat for literally weeks on end, nonstop. So at least we've been on the northern portion and getting some precipitation to help moderate conditions. It's humid in places, but we're at least preventing the drought to worsen even further. We just need to spread this precipitation out more evenly. And my hope is that over the course of the next week, with multiple waves riding along that stationary front as that continues to shift north and south through the next week, that we can put some precipitation in places that need it.
Will we see a little bit cooler temperatures then if we are seeing a break in the pattern?
Yeah, average temperatures are also falling this time of year, and we should be seeing average highs in the upper 80s to near 90s still. So I think we'll be seasonal, especially when we get periods of showers and storms that are going to moderate afternoon conditions. Still going to get hot though in the south when we see that ridge expand briefly here over the weekend, early next week. We're going to push those 100-degree temperatures back into the state, into southern Kansas, central Kansas, especially areas that miss precipitation. They're going to be likely to stay very warm. But when that front shifts back south again, we'll get episodes of precipitation. We'll definitely have some moderation in temperature. So we're going to be running average to above normal for the remainder of the month.
That was K-State meteorologist Chip Redmond. That's what we have for you this week on Agriculture Today, but we'll be back with more for you on Monday.